Alex's truck is stalled and sliding backwards down the hill.
When you hear of ice roads, what comes to your mind? Real roads like actual real roads? Perhaps. If you're not a fan of ice road truckers, then it could be possible you see it that way. But for fans, ice roads are, in fact, not roads at all. It's not what non-followers of ice road truckers would think. In ice road truckers, the roads are made from ice. Real ice. These roads are mainly frozen rivers and lakes, which truck drivers who use big rigs drive to some very inhospitable places. No wonder there are lots of dangerous moments on the show. But even in these dangerous moments, some are extreme. Driving on these extreme roads forms the most dangerous moments ever on the show. The Ice Road Truckers is about truck drivers who drive through frozen rivers and lakes across the Canadian and Alaskan frontier, and some Arctic communities. These drivers help to deliver supplies from the Northern Territories, Yellowknife, and Canada. The show went on air in June 2007 and ran for 11 seasons, coming to an end in 2017, November to be precise. It started as an episode in an entirely different series that is known as Suicide Missions, an episode based on Edith Ignar's book titled Denison's Ice Road. The episode turned into a full-fledged show. This was after the History Channel hired a cast member of Deadliest Catch, Tom Beers. The primary purpose was to document the lives of truck drivers as they move supplies to diamond mines and then Arctic communities. In a job this dangerous, there are dangerous moments, but some of these moments rank high in extremity. What made them so? One thing or the other, but it was iffy having to watch them. In 2017, Lisa Kelly, one of the fans' favorites, enjoyed what we could call a warmer than usual season like every other driver in the show, but she hoped and prayed that her truck doesn't get all mired up in slush or muskeg. Just in case you don't know what muskeg are, this is the Northerners' way of calling bog, peat moss, or vegetation that is already decomposing. But Lisa had no idea the worst was already on its way to happening. One thing familiar with most truck drivers and ice road truckers is their quick instinct. You can also call that their saving grace, and Lisa had much of that. On that day, Lisa found smoke coming out from the hood of her truck, which caused her to pull up the hood, only to find the engine compartment was in flames. In times like this, you need quick responses to address the issues, which was exactly what Lisa had. She had rushed to the cab and reached for her fire extinguisher, and before one could say Jack Robinson, the fire was put out. Imagine what could have happened if the fire had gone out of control, but it didn't, so we won't imagine that either. After the fire had been put out, further investigation into the cause showed that the fire resulted from muskeg that flew into the engine compartment, dried up, and boom, decided to go up in flames. That is probably why truck drivers are cautious of it. Another thing truck drivers in the show were cautious of was steep slopes. In fact, the most dangerous moments on the show were caused by slipping slopes, including this one. Do you know how most of the truck drivers were employed by Polar Express? If you don't know, now you know. Most truckers were hired and worked for Polar Express, which was run and managed by Mark Hoekirch. It happens that in one episode, Mark got a very large delivery to make, and to haul it would require 3 truckers. Reno Ward and Lisa Kelly followed him, which you'll get to know better. Do you think Mother Nature's friendly, or have her games up her sleeves? You would think otherwise after knowing how this delivery ended up as one of the most dangerous moments in the show. During the day designated for the haul and the delivery, Mother Nature decided to cause a delay by adding up to 4 to 6 feet of fresh snow. You'd think the delivery should be canceled, but these are what ice road truckers were built for. To deliver at times, delivery was made impossible because of nature. The trip wasn't easy, and the drivers had to go through every bit of the nail-biting journey. It was as moderately fair as possible before they came upon a very narrow bridge, which was only 15 foot with a 6-inch clearance. This wasn't the danger. The danger came when Lisa Kelly's rig came upon a hill that was so steep. Remember how steep slopes are one of the things truck drivers hate the most? This is why. As much as Lisa tried, her rig couldn't overcome the steep slope, which spelled trouble for them. For a delivery that had already been delayed for 24 hours, the last thing they needed was to be stuck in a ditch or covered by another 4 to 6 inches of snow. They had to use the chain on Reno's rig to attempt to bring Kelly's rig out of the steep slope. Looks pretty easy, right? Just strap the chain and pull. Boom, the rig is out and ready to hit the road again. But it didn't go that way. In fact, it was so dangerous that while pulling Lisa's rig from the slope, the chain in Reno's rig gave way and snapped, and Lisa's rig was hauled down the slick slope. Imagine being in a situation where you have to watch a rig weigh tons just sliding down a very slick slope. It was pretty dangerous. In fact, one of the most dangerous. But they eventually made it, and the delivery was successful.
We got the load to the top of the hill! Woo!
Doing what it takes at all costs.
Yeah.
This time the cost lands on you.
Speaking of most, what could be dangerous like life just dangling on the rig door and hopping to jump off in case of any disaster? This is the story of Alex Debergorski, a 46-year-old trucker. He's not 46 years old, but has spent 46 years driving trucks, so he's got experience and enough survival skills. Although he's well advanced, Alex is relatively young in heart and has many things to learn. In the last season, on his first run, Alex was about to cross a bridge but decided to stop first and check if the depth of the water was safe. But did he know what was in stock for him? He stepped out of the truck and onto the ice and found out the water was not deep. But what happened next was enough to give some viewers a heart attack. Alex went through the ice and got an unplanned, very cold ice bath. Dangerous? Very. But that is not the best part of it. Of course, he survived. It was just an ice bath. After all, some believe it's therapeutical. So, in Alex's defense, we could agree it did him good. And trust me, no one would want that, at least not people who are afraid of cold water baths even in their homes. While on another 10-mile ride, Alex found himself in a situation where you can literally say he threaded on thin ice. The ice wasn't exactly thin, but while he drove along, you could hear the sound of the cracking and popping giving way to the lake because of the truck's weight. A dicey situation indeed. You can't stop, you can't turn back, you just have to drive on. Alex did that, but innovatively. He hung by the rig door while driving in case of an emergency that may require him to jump. The emergency is a subtle way to put it, but you know, driving on a popping and cracking ice spells disaster. But Alex wasn't the only one with this kind of dangerous moment. During a wound down of a short season, Reno Ward, the late Reno Ward's son, also found himself in a similar situation but somewhat more dangerous. Truckers believe that stopping in a frozen lake is very dangerous. In fact, it's like a truck driving 101. Never stop on a frozen lake. Reno was caught in a situation where he had to stop on one. The episode was so scary and dangerous that you would literally say a silent prayer for him if you usually pray. Reno didn't just stop on ice. He stopped in the middle to fix his brake issues but was quick enough with the repairs before the ice gave way. It wouldn't be that dangerous if the ice were solid, but this ice was rapidly decaying, which made the situation one of the most dangerous in the show. The show had so many dangerous moments that picking one felt very difficult, but one that scared the hell out of most viewers was a Zimboni delivery to the Arctic. Truckers are pretty experienced, but the ice is always a problem. Imagine a situation where truckers are trapped. You might think that impossible, but it actually happened. While 3 out of the 4 drivers were stuck in a ditch covered with snow, it was left for Art Burke to deliver the Zimboni icing machine to smooth hockey rinks covered with ice. The problem was, in fact, not how to deliver the Zimboni, but the road. Why? On the road Burke took, there was a sloppy path. It wasn't going to cause a lot of problems if the slope wasn't slippery, but it was, and it caused Burke's rig to slide backwards and into a snowy ditch. Did he pull out? Of course he did, but not without plenty of effort and cursing.